Sorry, of course the dog barks. All right. As we said before, you are here for getting the information and resources you need for the New Hampshire Empower Youth program. For those of you joining us the first time, this is what we're referring to somewhat as round two. You do not have to have participated in round one. Round one was back in 2020. I believe it was the summer of 2020, which seems like eons ago. And that point, we gave out 3.5 million to approximately 69 programs across the state. Thanks to the Boys and Girls Club and Taylor Caswell, the commissioner at the Bureau of Economic Assistance. No, uh, uh, that those funds are coming through Gopher to all of you through the governor's office. We're very excited to be able to do this again. And so there's been lots of advocates involved in this and for all of you. So the PowerPoint today, as well as the recording of the call and the chat, are going to be posted on newhampshireconnections.org at COVID-19 financial resources under the New Hampshire Empower Youth program tab. I'm Diane Chase. I'm the Assistant Bureau Chief in the Bureau of Child Development and Head Start Collaboration. I've been tapped to work on this project because I also have a background in youth programs, particularly in gang violence prevention and teen parenting programs. So I'm really excited, although it's not part of my regular job, I'm very excited to be involved in it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to share information with you about the program and what it was designed to fund, how to apply, and then what to expect along with the accountability piece, and hopefully answer a lot of your questions. Our agenda is pretty simple. We've done our welcome. We're going to give you an overview of the program, how to apply, who can apply, what happens next, the documentation and accountability, and questions and answers. So as I said, please do not hesitate to continue to put questions in the chat. And Stephanie will be helping us when we get to the question and answer part to sort of consolidate those and answer them. And if you need me to reach out to you personally to have a discussion about your particular program, you can also put that in the chat and just say, hey, please have Diane set up a time to chat with me personally. So let's talk about the steps in the NHEYP program and funding process. So the first obviously was our program planning and funding application. That time period and the application process is between May 2nd, it opened on Monday, and May 18th. And we apologize for the short timeline. One of the reasons is we got a quick notification. We're very excited about the funds, and we want to be able to get them out the door to you all in case you want to use them for summer programming or in anticipation of your planning as we go forward towards the fall. We'll talk a little bit about the invoice process and how that can fit in with your fiscal year and your planning. When your application comes in and it's deemed complete, we'll talk about what that means. That's both the financial records as well as the online application. As soon as those come in, I've gotten a couple already, we start reviewing those for completeness. That'll go on. And then on the 18th, our reviewers step in. And those reviewers are assembled. There's 10 to 12 of them from DCYF. And they go through and they're looking at content, they're looking at what your target audience and all of those sort of things. They score those, then they come back in, and then we have another group that goes in and takes those scores. And we'll talk a little bit about that review process. And it is one that they may reach out to you. I may reach out to you during the initial review process as soon as I get your application if I have a question or something doesn't make sense or you forgot something. We're not so uptight about these that it's like a federal or a third party grant where we're going to say, hey, we're not going to ask you if there's something missing or we can't find something or we need some clarification. And the same thing may happen during the review process. So don't don't uh, don't worry. Just answer us quickly if you can. And then during that 18th to the 25th, we'll be making the funding decisions, and then we will get the notification out to you. We'll talk a little bit about that and what happens next. So first of all, what are the goals for this program? So this program is ideally to primarily benefit middle school and high school aged youth. So just so you know, and in sort of in contrast, in the childcare field, there's been over $100 million that's gone out over the last 2 years for the stability of childcare. That's early childhood, Head Start, right through after school programs for elementary kiddos. And so the advocates, as well as the governor's office, said, hey, we have a population here of middle school and high school kids that we need to continue to support. How can we do that? And with the first pass in 2020 of this program, as I said, we funded 69 programs. Actually took us up on the funding. We funded 71 and impacted close to 10,000 young people across the state. So we're looking forward to not only replicate but expand it. There's $3.5 million available for distribution, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means in terms of what you apply for. Another goal is to target providers, and that's a generic term for all of you, that will either expand, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, current programs or initiate new program opportunities. Now, let me clarify expand. Expand does not mean that you have to increase the number of participants. It means you can have an existing program, and what expansion can be of quality, so depth or scope or addition of equipment, staff, services. So don't get mired down into the idea that number one, you have to apply for a whole program budget, or you can if you want to, or that you need to be, if you have a program that serves 25 or 30 or 10 kids now, that you need to up it in order to get this funding. You don't. One of the examples I gave to a provider the other day was, say, for example, you run a program and you've always either rented or borrowed somebody else's ropes course as part of it, but you want to put in a ropes course, your own ropes course for this. That's an ideal thing to apply for the funds to do that. Now, you may continue to serve that same 10 to 20 group of young people or size program, but you've enhanced the quality and the long-term capabilities of your program by having your own ropes course. So that's an example. In addition, it's to provide access to program resources that fund could, and this is a could, it doesn't have to, youth counselor positions within a program, if it is a program that's aimed at younger children. So what does that mean? That means, for example, and there is a program that might be providing summer programming to elementary school age kiddos, for example. And what you want to fund is and that group of kids that are targeted are either at risk, or the youth counselors that you're providing are young people at risk, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And you want to fund those, I'm going to call them CIT-like positions. That's a great thing to be able to do. So you're basically talking about a program that's for elementary school age school age kids, but you are going to fund with these dollars those youth counselor positions. That's an example. What we'd like to see is not that they are just straight, that you're going to pay people to work in your program, but that youth counselor or youth involvement, maybe it's a mentoring program, has some other components to it, such as training, support skills, that sort of thing. So keep that in mind when you're writing. we're looking potentially, it could be programs, we want programs that provide leadership and mentoring skills to young people. And also particularly trying to combat the negative effects, social isolation and engagement in substance misuse or those subject to abuse or neglect. So we really are looking to target kids that have who are vulnerable. Now, what is it not intended to fund? It is not for income loss. Previously, there were some income loss components. This does not talk about income loss. It's not intended for childcare, straight up childcare, or private group lessons. So this isn't for tennis camp or, for the horseback riding lessons. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're a therapeutic horse back program and that you are bringing teenagers into that program, that doesn't nixay you. It's just not going to pay for those what we consider to be private and individual lesson activities. It's not intended to supplant other funding or fund something that's already been funded. Particularly those of you who are in municipal programs, keep that in mind. So for example, if you have the town funds your teens CIT program, or it funds a middle school or high school program. You can't supplant the funding that you already have for that. Doesn't mean you can't apply, but it means you're going to say to us, hey, the town already pays for this, and we're going to use your funding to pay for this. And when we say it's not intended to maintain the status quo, that doesn't mean that, as we said before, you absolutely can apply to continue a successful program or expand that program. But we want you to think a little bit out of the box about what you're going to do that's going to enhance that with these funds. And lastly, it's not for traditional childcare, early childhood, or elementary school programs funding, and that's just straight funding. So we have different funds for those. So, who's eligible? Nonprofit and for-profits are eligible. You can be a school year youth program. You can be a summer program only. We are not funding residential summer camps. And if you are going to be pitching to have a summer program funded, it needs to be a program that's going to run, when I say fairly regularly throughout the summer, it's not going to be something you run for 2 weeks in the summer and that's it. So make sure that it's something that has an ongoing component to it. We're particularly looking for programs that are offering activities for what are considered vulnerable children, and we're going to define that in a minute. Some of the things that, we traditionally see with young people that are considered vulnerable, as we said, gang violence prevention, dropout prevention, safe havens, all of those sort of activities. You all are encouraged to apply. And as we said before, you can apply if you have an elementary or early childhood program, and you're applying for the component that involves middle school or high school kiddos. If this is a question, again, reach out to me. We'll talk it through and see how that fits in the funding criteria. And teen parenting programs absolutely are eligible to apply for programming for this. But you can't just apply for childcare services for the teen child. It has to have a program component for the teen parent. You have to serve 75% of the children have to be from New Hampshire residents. And we understand that if you are offering a program that's a border state program, that you could have Massachusetts kids as well. So, but really we're concentrating on our New Hampshire children. In addition, you have to be eligible to receive a state of New Hampshire vendor number. If you don't have one, it's really simple. Pop online, we'll give you the link. You fill out some information. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes at the most. You have to have some equitable enrollment policies around race and income and gender and religion. In other words, you don't exclude um, children. Now, that doesn't mean that if you are running a boys program that you can't have it just for boys. That's okay. But I won't go extensively into this, but I think we're pretty clear this isn't one where you're going to um, make it exclusionary. We're looking for inclusive, but if the point of your program is to focus on LBG Q kiddos, that certainly, that's a broad spectrum and you're inviting them all in. It might not make sense that a child who didn't fit into that category would join the organization, but you wouldn't necessarily exclude them. A minimum of 65% of the young people that you're serving need to meet the DCYF definition of vulnerable children. So you say, what are vulnerable children? First thing before I hit this is I want to make it really, really clear. These young people do not have to have an open DCYF case. That is not necessary. In fact, you don't have to have a single child that has an open DCYF case. But what we're looking at is children that are at risk, and that is at risk for abuse or neglect in physical, psychological, or environmental factors. And they could qualify because they're in a really difficult home situation. They could qualify because they are in socioeconomically a difficult situation. They had a tough year. They've had a loss in their family. So again, what we're looking at in terms of that 65% is, are you reaching a group of vulnerable middle school and high school children? And how do you define that, and how are you reaching them? So how your program is going to be selected. First of all, we really work to make it a fair and equitable review process. I just should say that in our previous funding scenario, we did not. No, that's not true. I turned away one program. We funded almost every single application, and they were all compelling in their own way and very diverse. And the one that wasn't funded was basically fell into that more private lesson activities, and was more business funding than a program funding. So what are the criteria? Obviously, the demonstrated program needs meet the program goals and criteria. Are you going to respond to that middle school and high school population, and how are you doing it? And if it's a new program, how you're going to launch it, how you're going to keep it going. Now, do you have to prove that you have sustainability funds to keep it after our funding runs out, if our funding is the exclusive? No. But what we are going to look at is if you are, if your program budget says it's a $100,000 program and we can only fund $50,000 of it, what's your plan for funding the other half? Certainly, we pay attention to partnerships and collaborations and other supports and funding the program has received. One of the questions I've been asked quite a bit is, are previously funded programs going to gain an advantage? Certainly, that is going to be a consideration. It is on our review checklist. Have they been funded before? We know their track record. We know their capability. It doesn't mean that they're guaranteed funding, but certainly they will fall into a criteria list. But those of you who are new to the table, don't feel like that's going to nixay you. We don't have a finite number of programs that we're going to fund. We only have a finite amount of money. So what's the application process and the timelines for success? We hope it's a fairly simple application process. Like we said, it is a evolving process. You submit your application. We review it. I may pick up the phone and call you. One of my colleagues may pick up the phone and call you, or we'll email you and say, hey, you were saying in your target audience, this is your group, or we're not clearly understanding this. And so then we would make the changes before that goes to the review committee. So what's the timeline? So really the most important timeline for you all is that the application process started on Monday. It ends on the 18th at 11:59 p.m. The application link is set to close at that time automatically. They will also have to have all of your financial information, which we'll talk about in a minute, received. In regards to that financial information, and I'll say this several times, the financial information is just to show viability, that you're a real business and that you have you've planned financially to operate this program if we fund it, and give us a sense of sort of the stability and an overview. Once the programs are funded, that financial information is shredded. So that is not something you have to worry about, that someone's going to be able to see your internal financial information. It also does not go to the DCYF reviewers. That's internally done by our part of the review group. And so once we pass you on to the review committee, what we've said is, yes, this is a real organization, real business, and we're affirming from a business standpoint that they can do what they say they're going to do. Then beginning on literally the morning of the 19th, the reviewers will be getting applications. They have a score sheet they will go through. And there's enough of them that we'll be able to do it very quickly. And then our goal is by the 25th, maybe earlier, depends on how quickly we get them done and how many we have, we will get notifications out. Ideally, we would do those all pretty much at the same time. And what you get when you get a notification from us, first of all, whether you're funded or not, we'll let you know. Ideally, everybody will be funded. I'm keeping my fingers crossed for all of you. And then you will get a congratulations, this is your funding amount, with an attached agreement that you will need to sign electronically and get that back to us. And in addition, you will also have an invoice that is attached. So you can send both your agreement and your invoice back. Now you'll find that there's 2 invoices attached. And the reason we did that was so if you don't want to submit an invoice for all of it at one time, I know some people like to stagger it out, then you are welcome to do that. But you can bill us for the whole thing in one invoice. This is a one and done. The last day to submit invoices, because we have to have those funds out the door by September 30th in 2022, is September 10th, 2022. And then you have until December 31 of 2023 to spend those dollars. The final report will be due January 15th of 2024. One of the questions I've been asked is, hey, wait, what if I spend all my money in the summer of 22? Do I have to wait till 2024 to complete the final report? If what you're funding is only going to fund a program during, let's say, the summer of 2022, and it won't have any impact on the summer of 2023, then no, you'll be able to basically give us all your information, who you served, how you spent the funds. But obviously what we're looking for is the longest impact with the funds as possible. So what's the application process? So just to confuse you, there's 2 ways to access the application. There is a generic link, which is on the New Hampshire Connections website. There's also the option for a custom link that comes out of SurveyMonkey with an ECCP email address. And it's very strange. When it comes out, just to give you an example, I've sent 80 of them out and 10 say they bounced. We don't really know what that means. Some will say opt out occasionally, which sounds like you decided you didn't want to accept it. It's something to do with a system somewhere. So every generic link, every custom link can only be used with an individual email address. So if you're doing multiple applications, don't try to overwrite on a custom link. And you'll want to give me a second email address. And I can send it anywhere. I can send it to your home address. I can send it to a colleague, whatever will work. The nice thing about the custom link is you can go back and make changes all the way up until 11:59 on the 18th. So I won't consider it your final application until the 18th. So if there's something that you want to change, or there's something I reach out to you and say, hey, we need to get that changed, you can go in and do it. You cannot do that with the generic link, which is what you would get off to New Hampshire Connections, or the initial email that we sent. That's a one and done. So you go in, you do it. Once you click done, that submits it. Now with the custom link, when you click done, all it does is save it, closes it, puts it in my file. I can look at it, but like I said, you can go back and change it over and over. So, and the other thing about the custom link is you can get a copy. The generic link, you'll be dependent on me to get you a copy. So just to keep in mind, if you want that generic link, please send me an email at the ECCP email address, and just put in the subject line request for the custom link, and I will send that out to you. And then I'll confirm it with an email that says, and I don't think I did this for everybody, I just did, but I'll say, custom link, and that should say to request a custom link. I will change that, not a generic link. That just make sure that you get it, and if you don't, let me know. It doesn't instantly happen. It takes a few minutes to go out. So, oops, sorry about that. The application instructions, FAQs, are going to be written, obviously, as soon as we have some questions. And we'll keep posting those along with the generic link and the application template, all on that New Hampshire Connections website. And we told you about the 11:59 deadline. And it would help if I had time to read this before. So it's actually May 18th. I will change this before I post this. So it is May 18th is the deadline, and the custom link, you have to email me. And like I said, we're going to be reviewing them on a rolling basis, and we will reach out with questions and concerns. So you'll note that in the instructions, we offered you the capability to add some extra information. And what that means is that you can give us, if you're a single program, 2 additional pages. And if you are a multi-site program, you can give us 4 additional pages. In addition to that, you can include brochures, videos, whatever you want. What we do is we take all of that and we put it into your electronic file that we share with the reviewer. But I want to strongly, strongly emphasize, this is not meant to be a burden. This is totally an option, and there aren't any, we don't say, oh, well, we didn't get anything else from, Chase's gang violence prevention program. We only got their application and their financial stuff, so obviously they're not very robust. We do not, that is not how it is viewed. Some of you have generated flyers, brochures, done videos, your program's been around longer. So again, please, please, please take this to heart. You do not have to include anything extra. Anything you do is wonderful. You also do not, in this particular case, need to include a support letter. Having been a grant writer for probably 25 of my career, 25 years of my career were funded by grants. I totally know what a pain it is often to chase down people for those support letters. You don't have time to do that. So please don't feel that you have to do that. If you have something that's on hand and you want to include it with those extra materials, that is fine as well. But again, it's not a plus or a negative. It's just added information about your program. Financial documents. So like we talked about, basically we're trying to be able to say for our due diligence, to say that you are in fact real people doing real business in the state of New Hampshire. And so there's a place on the application where it says, what are you submitting for a financial document? So if you are an existing program, um, please submit something from 2021. I have heard from a number of you that you haven't, those especially nonprofits, haven't all filed their 990s. So if that is the case, include your 2020 and then include something that mirrors sort of a profit and loss statement or your financials for 2021. New programs, everybody has to submit an operational budget, but anything that you can include that shows how you're being funded, if you're part of a larger organization, those are the sort of things that we're looking for. So step back and say to yourself, what will show the state of New Hampshire that we're that we have the financial depth, if you will, um, uh, to um, to provide this programming that we are proposing here. Now, can you get the documents to me? You can scan them and email them. You can do it as an attachment. Just make sure you put the name of your program in the both the program name that you applied for the grant under, as well as if there's a broader organization. So for example, if you're a YMCA, and your YMCA of Central New Hampshire, then but the program that you're operating is called, Teens Out of Trouble, then you want to make sure you give both of those, because sometimes what happens is I have a hard time matching them together with your application. So you can email those, you can drop them off at the Brown Building, which is the main administration building for DHHS in Concord. Or you can mail them, but if you mail them, make sure that they're in our hands no later than that Wednesday mail that comes in, because we're going to really quickly turn those around and start reviewing them. And that's what makes your files complete. You will get, if you email them, you'll get an email from me that says, yes, we've got them all. And I will do my very best for those of you who drop them off to send you an email confirming that as well, that yes, I have it. I'll pop over a couple times during the week and keep checking. So what are the resources? There's a template. This is all on the New Hampshire Connections. There's a template for the application. It doesn't show down all the pull down menus, but it gives you an idea of how to prepare. There's a very detailed application instruction and grant parameters. There is a FAQs. There's also virtual office hours. If you haven't joined us for virtual office hours before, basically it's kind of an open door. It's as if I'm sitting in my office and you're swinging by. Those are also posted on New Hampshire Connections. You don't need to register, and you can pop in any time in the hour-long period to ask any kind of question. Some people hang out and just listen to what their colleagues are asking. The webinar copies will be on the website, as well as I realized this morning I did not put the allowable expenses chart up there, and I will get that up ASAP. So what's the reporting and accountability? So quarterly, beginning when we do the funding, there'll be a very brief, and I'm not talking about an auditable with records and dollars and that sort of thing. Basically, it's a quickie question. Hey, who are you serving? Have you started your program? And just a quick statement on how you've spent your money, or we haven't spent any of our money yet. And that way we keep Gopher updated on who we funded, how many children they're serving, what they're doing, and so that they again can keep the legislature as well as the public informed. Just so you know, your award amount and this is in the agreement, your award amount and your, yes, Diane, your program name are publicly listed. So your financial information is not publicly, as we said, shared. But and so just so you know that it will be, usually I believe they post a list somewhere. They did previously. You're going to co-participate in some data collection in the data collection system. Once we've developed what that looks like, again, really simple. You would just provide us with some basic data about who you're serving. It is aggregate data. It will not have any PII in it. So don't worry that you're going to be telling us tales out of school or that's something that we need to have a data agreement. Hopefully you're willing to have a site visit. That's part of the agreement. And we have what's really cool this time around, where last time it was, mid-pandemic and a lot of things were below the radar and people weren't doing site visits. This time around, we have a lot of interest. And so I would not doubt if you have your local rep or senators or something who will reach out and ask to do various site visits. And like I said, the final report can be submitted when your funds have been fully expended and the impact exhausted, but you can't put them in before December 31st, 22. So we do have to report. Technically, your final report isn't due until 2024. So if you're managing to spend your funds or spread them out over that period of time, great. But if not, we're going to try to make it as easy as possible for you to finish up reporting by January of this year. So before we jump over there, I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and let me pull up the application. Okay. Let's see. There it is. Okay. So this is a template of the application. I will apologize right off the bat for the limitations of SurveyMonkey. And if we find errors, unfortunately, if I go in and edit them, it changes your answers or it throws out your answers. So I won't be doing that. So if I've made a mistake, my apologies. We'll talk through it. The beginning starts with the basic overview, pretty much of what we just talked about. Then we ask about what county. It's essential that you put the county. If you are serving more than one county, just select one of them and make a note, and I'll show you where you can tell me that we serve, Stratford and Rockingham County. Just so we know, this is not only for our accountability purposes for the money, but it also is part of how the awards get displayed. Program name is what your program is called. So if your program is Reaching for the Stars, then this is what we want to know what you're doing business under, because that's how we're going to refer to you as the Reaching for the Stars program. However, your larger organization might be, Chase's mental health services of Stratford County. So that there's a place for that down later in it. The application contact person is essential. This is who I can reach out to and talk to during the application if we've got an issue. Then also the program director, and this is where you put that parent organization. So if it is a larger organization, and who we would contact at that organization if we needed to. Then we ask about whether you were funded before, sort of your status. Are you you've never been funded before, you're a new program. This gives us an idea of sort of who you are and where you are. at this point. I know some folks, we funded you, and then when the funding ran out, the program ran out. That's okay. Don't feel like that's something that's going to be a strike against you. We're just trying to, again, find out where you are and what you're doing. The payment contact information is, again, who should be on the invoice. And one of the big things here to remember when you put this information is down here under payment or information, we have the employer ID number. If you have that, you have to have a SAMS number to get this money because it's considered a subrecipient. So if you don't have a SAMS number, start applying for it now. It doesn't seem to be that tough. Everybody did it before, but don't delay. If you have a child care or camp license number, please put that there. If you don't, that's okay. This isn't a exclusionary. And again, with the SAMS number, please submit your application. You can work on getting your SAMS number. The vendor ID, again, not required for the application. But by the time you send in an invoice, we can't pay the invoice without the SAMS number or the vendor number. Sorry. They're doing landscaping today. Program type, this is a pull down menu. There's also a text space if you look at the program types and you don't feel like you really fit in there. How long you've been operating. Again, this isn't it doesn't say a black mark if you haven't been operating for a certain period of time. It's just to give us an idea of how long you've been in operation. And then in your program description, please check off anything that applies. So we'll be interested. This gives us a snapshot of what kind of program you are. And also, again, we're looking for diversity. And so if we get a whole bunch of applications and we're missing counties, or we have limited numbers in the counties, or if we look at this and we have limited numbers of for profits or, university sponsored programs, then it tells us who we should reach out to and expand. Also, some of these other informations where it says whether you rent your building or you own your building also gives us an idea of potentially future funding challenges. I do want to emphasize this isn't about wordsmithing. Okay, so don't when you're writing the narrative part and we get into that, doesn't have to be lengthy. We want it succinct. We want it clear. This isn't meant to be a torturous grant application. And so it's about what you're doing, who you're doing it for. In terms of the financials, we talked about that. This is just where you're going to indicate what you're dropping off or what you're sending in for financials. Everybody needs a full operating budget. And what that means is that, well, I'll go back and use myself as an example. So I'm running Chase's teen camp program. So, but what I'm asking NHEYP to fund is just the ropes course. But I'm going to show that, that the whole program, it's $100,000 summer program, and I'm asking you to fund the one CIT coordinator and the ropes course or something like that, or the ropes course training and a ropes course. So, but we want to be able to see how this fits into a whole a plan. Again, this is just about the program status, whether it's operating, financial documents you're going to deliver them. Also, by the way, if you put in there that you're going to be dropping them off, but you end up putting them in the mail, you don't have to course correct. It's just to give us it's just to give me an idea of what to be looking for. So in this section, we talk about your program, what's the setting, who's your target audience, the activities. Again, not a ton of room. So consolidate your thoughts, use those extra pages and any brochures or whatever. If you want to expand on it, you can refer to those. But this is, again, if you think about somebody who doesn't know anything about your program, what are the things you want to tell them about what you're doing? When we talk about when will this program operate, what we're saying is if it's a summer program, you're going to say it starts on July 7th and it ends on August 24th, or if it runs during the school year, it's a daytime program if it's a program that doesn't have definitive hours per se, for example, um, it's a street outreach program for homeless teens, then you would say we operate on a year-round basis. We have staff that are on the streets 7 days a week, so on and so forth. So again, it's not carved in stone. We're just trying to get a snapshot of what you're doing. And then here you're going to target, where here you talked about who your target audience in general is. In number 14, you're really going to get specific about what kiddos that you're really looking to reach out to, and what are the associated demographics with those children. In other words, the risk factors, who they are, where you're going to pull them from. And again, we understand that this might be a proposed target audience that you're going for, and that it's not, it might not be as specific as, we're outreaching to 100 children that are vulnerable in these ways. So your previous description talks about your target population in terms of numbers, but this really talks about who those young people are. Here's your specific numbers. And again, don't get all caught up in, oh my gosh, I don't know. I told them that we were going to have 25 middle schoolers and 50 high schoolers, but I'm not sure if we're going to have those. So if you hope that are going to be participating in that first month when you launch your program or you continue your program, and then ideally how many you would like to serve on an annual basis. This is a goal. So yeah, we're going to hold your feet to the fire about how you're spending your money, and that you're doing your very best to do what we say. But we also know teenagers are fickle. Outreach programs are challenging. And so, and how, if you, for example, are running a CIT program and you hope to have 15 middle schoolers, that's your goal and that's your hope. But if you don't make that, then really the question I'm going to say is, hey, what did you learn from that? How can we do it differently next time? Or what are the circumstances that impacted that? Again, same thing with staff. You're talking about how many that you're planning on employing or will be employing. We know what the job market is like right now. So ideally, yeah, you might want 10 part-time staff, but you only end up with 5. Again, this is an estimate. What we're going to look at this and say, in planning purposes, in ideal situations, we will be able to provide this many, or we would like to be able to fund or provide in our program this many young people. Don't just put in these questions what we're paying for, what NHEYP is going to be paying for, but in generally the whole program. Here you're going to talk about the percentage of those vulnerable kiddos that you're going to be serving. And don't forget, this has to, your target goal has to be 65%. At least. It's okay if it's 100%. Same thing, your New Hampshire young people, the target goal is 75%. Then how much money are you applying for? So this is the, I guess I would say we're up to the $20 billion question. So last time we asked people to apply for the funding that they fully needed for whatever program or piece of a program that they were offering. And I would say that same thing this time. And our grants ranged from as little as $15,000, $10,000 to, I think we had some that were over $100,000. So what we really want you to do is to put into your application, these are the funds that we need to do the job that we are describing above. And so do we have millions? No, we have, for individual programs, we have 3.5 million. But if you think about that, we funded 69 programs with $3.5 million. So really think through what it would take to do what you want to do. And in terms of a time period, to run that program, you know, if you're going to ask for $100,000 or $200,000, but you're going to run a single summer program and it'll have no impact after that, my question would be, so, you know, does your application reflect the number of young people or the type of program that you're going to be warranting that amount of money, which isn't a lot of money, by the way. On the other side of the coin, you know, if you're going to ask for $250,000, then we're going to look at the longevity of that program. So ask for what you need. And then if it's disproportionate or we don't think we can fund it all, we'll pick up the phone and say to you, okay, we're not going to have that level of funding, but if we came back with this level of funding, what could you do? How could we course correct to help you provide as much of that programming as possible? So this is just you're going to include a standard budget, but this is just some basic questions about what areas you'll be asking for funding. So we're trying to get a sense of, are you going to be asking for staffing or supplies or equipment? You do not have to have something. This is what you're asking for, not what you are, not what your whole budget reflects. So like I said, I'll use the ropes course as an example. Say I was asking for money for a ropes course and money for a ropes course trainer, then the only things I would have, and let's say I'm asking for $50,000, that would be, I would put, you know, I'm making these numbers up, $35,000 here for the ropes course, and then for services or other areas, it depends on where you want to put it, I would put an additional amount of funds for the training here, or maintenance, or whatever. And then what we ask you to do is, if you've put those in here, so if I put $15,000 for, or just put $15,000, then I want to know, as you scroll down here, if it's staffing, what does that mean? And so they coordinate with each one of those. So here I would say to purchase a ropes course, have it installed, so on and so forth. And then I might put down below, you know, here I'm going to be paying for professional development to train our staff on how to utilize and maintain the ropes course, or whatever. Then we ask a very simple question, whether you're a member of a coalition. That just tells us who you're aligned with. And then we talk about, this gives you some space to talk about if you receive these funds or don't receive these funds, what'll be the impact? You know, where do you feel there'll be a deficit? Where is there? Essentially, this is your need statement. And then you can also do those extra pages as we talked about, because there's not a ton of room here. And I just asked if you plan on including the pages. Again, if you decide later, like, nah, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to drop it off, or I'm going to mail it, but I said differently, you don't have to change that. This is just to help me make sure that I'm getting everything that you're putting in. Here you confirm that, to the best of your knowledge, you've told us the truth. What you're supplying us is accurate and true, and you are done with the application. Again, don't kill yourself on the wordsmithing here. I like bullets. You like bullets. Bullet. Less is more in this particular case. So I'm going to, actually, I don't even feel like I need to go back to the screen, because all it says are questions. So Stephanie, I am looking for questions. Who wants to know what?
There are a few people, three people who actually would like to meet with you personally. So great. I can, I'll send that the chat to you so you can see that.
Super.
And then,
And let me just add to that, Stephanie, that those of you, I'm a night owl, so if it's better to chat after hours, I'm always happy to chat after hours. So like all of you, my workday doesn't end at 5 o'clock. So if after you get kids in, or after you've come in from walking the dogs, and you want to chat at 7:30 at night, that works fine for me. So, and weekends, except I'll be cleaning the garage, so you have to talk to me while I'm cleaning the garage. It's one of my goals this weekend. All right, what else you got, Steph?
so Lindsay Tompkins asked, she said their virtual tutoring program is free of charge to all participants since their tutors are volunteering their time.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to know if she should put a scholarship line item in the other section of her budget or just leave it out.
That's interesting. I would go ahead and put it in.
Okay, in one of the final reportings from last year, the reporting had where it wanted the scholarship, but the initial grant that we put in, like, it didn't ask.
Oh,
So I have a figure of what we would, if tutoring services were charged to an individual, what we would charge. So I could put
you know what, Lindsay, I wouldn't bother and put that
Okay.
in. And what I would do is I would just describe that, say that the tutoring services that we deliver have a value of this much.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
No problem.
We have another question from Dee Peranto. She asked if you could please put the chat in the website so that they can find the PowerPoint. Oh, excuse me. Put
If you
the
could put
website where they can they can find the PowerPoint.
Sure. Actually, Stephanie, if you want to type that in, that's financial resources, COVID-19.
Oh, excellent. I will do that. And
So,
then let's see, Stephanie Slayton asked, do you want an estimated operational budget for the entire agency through 12/23 or just for the program being funded by NHEYP?
So that's kind of actually, I'm going to give you a half and half. So let me use it as an example. So let's say you're the Boys and Girls Club. You're applying for your Teens Out of Trouble program. What I really only need to see is the operating budget piece you're going to send me is for the Teens Out of Trouble program. But when you send your financials in, yeah, you'd probably want to show us what the agency capability is, if that makes sense.
And
what
then
else?
The final question is from Susan Houghton, and she says, what's the budget period from the date of award to December 31st, 2023?
Yes, December 31st. Yes. Now, you don't have to do that whole period of time. So if you're saying we're asking for $50,000 to run this program between and what I would do, y'all, is I would say to start your budget just from practicality standpoint from June 1st. I think that's just an easier way to do it than trying to say, May 25th. But I would say, from June 1st to whenever you will exhaust these funds is what I'm really looking forward for. And so if it's not going to carry you through December 31 of 2024, 2023, yeah, don't try to put that in. So think reasonably of what period of time you can cover with these funds. The other part of that too is that one of the questions we'll be asking you in the quarterly report is how's your sustainability going, and is your program going to end? Because that makes a case. I'm not saying that there's more money. I'm just saying that makes a case for advocates to be able to go back and say, hey, we have these fabulous, 100 programs that we've just funded, and 30 of them are going to end unless there's some more funding stream. And that allows people to put together a whole bunch of ideas about different resources. So again, you're asking for money for a finite period of time that works for you for the amount of money that you're asking for. So, any other questions?
I did have a question, Diane. Did you say that the presentation in the PowerPoint will be, you said it would be located under the COVID-19 tab.
Yep.
Will it be under trainings and webinars?
No. So it's under we're going to put everything under that. So if you go to the New Hampshire Connections website and you go to
I can actually pull it up.
COVID-19 under financial resources, there's a tab that says,
Let me actually move this out of the way.
that says NHEYP, or says New Hampshire.
So
go to financial resources, Stephanie. Yeah.
Excellent.
Click on there and then scroll down and you'll see on the
right here.
Yep. So everything is going to be right here, folks.
Excellent.
So you won't have to search around. I will add that allowable uses. The allowable uses, by the way, are really operational expenses, all of that. Some of the things that this Fed money excludes you from being able to do is things like you can't do construction with it. So you can't build a new building, or you're not now ideally somebody asked me, can you do repairs? Yes, you can. If you're running a program, let's say you're running a summer camp program and the cabins that your teens stay in need roof repairs, yes, you can use that money for that. And you would say that. So again, it is think about best uses for funds. So I know we're past the time, but I will just say if there's anybody that wants to unmute themselves and ask a quick question. Those of you who have to go, thank you so much. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. And don't forget, it is Friday.
Hi, Diane. Happy Friday.
Thank you.
I have a quick question about, I recognize that you are funding for-profit and nonprofit,
yes.
and I am in the interim. So I am an incorporated charity, fairly new, and applying for a 501c3. So obviously I'm going to apply. I think you guys are going to love the program, but do I have to indicate anywhere which of those I am, or is it just going to be fine?
No, you'll indicate in that checkoff list, like all of these apply, but there's a space for you to be able to write in there and say, hey, we're in the process of doing this.
Cool. Thank you.
And we did not make any, how do I say this? We didn't make any distinction in terms of who we funded and didn't fund it, whether they were profit or nonprofit in the previous one. Like you don't get more points because you're a nonprofit.
Awesome. You're the only ones who feel that way.
That's because I've worked in both the profit and nonprofit world and did good stuff in both sides, right? So yeah, and we all know, even if you're a for-profit company, who makes money with a kid business? So
we're here for the social profit, right?
Exactly. Yes. I'm emotionally rewarded, and I'm going to tell my mortgage company that. So anybody else got any other questions? Well, don't forget our first virtual office hours are on Friday. So the real Friday, tomorrow, I think they are. And then we don't feel like you got to come to the second webinar because I'm going to say the same thing I said here. And as quickly as I can, we'll get the recording up and we'll get the FAQs and Stephanie will tell me who wants to have a separate meeting or conversation. And do not hesitate to, if you think of something afterwards, shoot me an email at that ECCP. Also, I'm going to say this over and over to people, if I know I haven't said it, it doesn't matter whether your application comes in Monday or whether it comes in at 11:58 on Wednesday, the 18th. That makes absolutely no difference as to whether you're going to be funded or not. Everybody carries the same weight. So, if that vacation is planned for next week, don't feel like you got to spend the weekend writing the grant. All right. And that's all I've got to say. So let's go and enjoy the sun. Thank you, everybody, so much. We'll talk soon. Bye.